Quick Slants is presented by your local New England Honda dealers.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Go down fighting. Well, that's what you would hope from the 2023 Patriots. But are they doing that? There have been oodles of low points so far for this 2023 Patriots team, but Sunday we kind of saw a new one. I get the logic Bill Belichick used in punting all those times in the fourth quarter, but at this point, I mean, what do you got to lose? Meanwhile, the game closes against Kansas City with Andy Reid and the Chiefs taking mercy knees inside the 5 and giving the ball back to the Patriots to close it out. There's an upside in April to losing now, but the way some of these losses go down, very tough to swallow. Almost leaves you feeling a little bit grinchy. Here's the game plan for today's program. Too much pain, injuries. How much of a role have they played? The waiting game. If and when there's a decision on Bill Belichick, how long is it going to take? Nathan, for you. Patriots have a new quarterback, and Chris Boomer Berman will join us for the C Block. All right, first, before we get to quickfire, let's bring in Andrew Callahan. And Andrew, what was your take on the way things closed on Sunday?
It was put to me like this. It looked like the Chiefs were finishing with a nice 4-foot putt. And as far as the Patriots side goes, it's a little shocking. And it still feels that way, even though they're 3-11, because for so long, as you know, this was a franchise of no excuses. This was the team that didn't quit down 28-3, or when Tom Brady gets hurt in week 1 of 2008, and they march on to an 11-5 season. But this was a team that quit with 4 minutes left, down 2 scores. That's enough time. Yeah, you're at the 1. But what do you have to lose? You take a safety, you give up a touchdown, you're already down multiple scores. Go down fighting, and they didn't.
Yeah, it was eye-opening in so many ways. We're going to get into that, and we're going to get into the injuries. But time now for Quick Fire. It's presented by your local New England Honda dealers. Here's Bill Belichick when asked about Cole Strange, who the team lost in the second half.
Yeah, it was tough to lose him. It was tough to lose Connor. It was tough to lose Hunter. So, kind of at the end there, we were not, honestly, didn't feel like we were able to, do probably what we should have done in that situation. At the end of the game, I'm talking about.
So there's your explanation. And are the Patriots too hurt to be good? Are injuries the root cause of the 3-11 season? It's interesting. Before we go to you, Andrew, I want to just make this point. These Patriots, as you point out, have always been about being a next man up team. And this is a tweet from Man Games Lost, And if you look at that, you can see the New England Patriots, that big bubble at the top. They are the 5th most man games lost from 2009 to 2022. Obviously, the most wins over the course of that time. And the size of the bubble, well, that's relative to the quality of the players lost. So they lost the best players for the 5th most games, and they still won the most. Andrew, is the root cause injuries?
No. I mean, let's go back to the preseason. You and I were batting around, hey, they might be 8-9. They could be 9-8. You come in with 11-6 and look like a crazy person because that's just the roster talent they had, in addition to the hardest schedule in the league. And even if you want to put this all on injuries, that would be fair. I would question you this, though. Why is Bill Belichick still operating as he did in 2009, before we had sports science, before you could measure how many miles guys are running in practice, and the exact severity of these injuries? Because you look at the teams at the top in the AFC, Kansas City, Buffalo, they give their veterans time off, rest days from practice. The Eagles do the same thing in the NFC. I think they've just been stuck in certain ways and have not confronted the reality, whether it's the talent level on their roster or how they treat that talent that just compounds their issues. Some of it's absolutely bad luck. But in other areas, you should have done better.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at an injury to Mike Onwenu that he had a surgery on, or Cole Strange, who happened in training camp, you can't avoid that. But a Tyquan Thornton, who's slightly built, or a Riley Reif or a Calvin Anderson, Riley Reif in particular, who's at the end, and you're counting on him to be the right tackle, with Trent Brown on the other side, both having injury and absence issues over the course of their career. It's tough to bet on those guys. But we do have voices who say that Bill Belichick, head coach, he more than still has it. Meanwhile, Will Grier was signed away from the Patriots, and the Patriots in turn have now signed Nathan Rourke. Welcome, Mr. Rourke. What has he done? Well, in the Canadian Football League, he was outstanding. in 2022. Look at those numbers. 33, 49, 25, and 10. He can scoot a little bit. He's not big, but he now becomes the 6th quarterback. Is that 8? 8. Oh, boy, 8. 8th quarterback on the roster since the beginning of the offseason. Andrew, this player that we would actually have to learn the name of and pay attention to going forward, perhaps?
No. Nathan Rourke also, tell me if I'm wrong, sounds like a failed presidential candidate from the 1800s. Like, this guy could have been in any black and white headshot, maybe on a dollar bill had he actually won. But no, I mean, if you go back to the beginning of the season, Tom, and I'm telling you, hey, week 15, week 16, we're talking about Nathan Rourke here for the Patriots. How did we get here? You would have said Mac Jones got kidnapped, Bailey Zappi went missing. That's the only way you explain Nathan Rourke being in New England and someone who's the topic of a show in the first 8 minutes, because that's how bad it's been. And what's actually happened is probably worse. With how broken Mac Jones has been, Bailey Zappi's been fine. He's a backup. But, like, this is, I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if anything does befall Bailey Zappi at some point, ineffectiveness or injury. Is Mac Jones the guy back in? You'd almost have to bet on that. Can't put Nathan Rourke in there. He just got here. Meanwhile, speaking of quarterbacks, here's Tom Brady talking about the Gardner Minshew throw that resulted in a suspension for the rest of the season for one of the Pittsburgh Steelers defenders. Nobody likes seeing players get hurt, but hard hits happen. Quarterbacks should not be throwing the ball in areas where they are exposing their own teammates to these types of hits. It goes on. Andrew, I used to ask Tom Brady about this because he had receivers, especially Wes Welker, who were being put in harm's way on a regular basis. The seam throw to Gronk, dangerous throw. And he would always talk about the responsibility lying with him to protect them. What are your thoughts on Brady?
First of all, he got crusty so fast. I mean, these are comments that should be from a 57, 67-year-old quarterback, not one who just got out of the league. But I think the larger point is, I'm glad he's being open and honest about this, because he's about to make the amount of money that is in the GDP of a small world country. And for the next 13 years, being a commentator from Fox. In order to keep that job, you need to say interesting things, insightful things, not whitewashed, sanitized, team-approved PR statements. Tom was the best quarterback of all time, one of the worst at the podium. That's fine. It's how he did his business. But now that you're in the media business, it's time to start talking like this.
He was not one of the worst at the podium.
Oh, my God, Tom, come on. It was the only thing he was bad at.
Are you kidding? All right, we'll go over that more on the break. Time now for From the Stands, because we want to hear from you guys. Our poll results are presented by Shaw's, perfecting the art of fresh. I asked a simple question. How much should injuries enter into the evaluation of this disastrous season? What's that, 85% of people saying either no excuse for it or a little, but not much. Here's the comments streaming in, starting with our guy Dan Alper. They were 1-3 with a healthy Judon and Gonzalez. They would have been 0-4 if Rodgers hadn't torn his Achilles. Good point by you, Danny. The injuries haven't helped, but this team was going to be bad even with perfect health. I do disagree a little bit. Paul McKeskey, the legend. My guy, isn't it BB that always says we got to play the guys we have? Promoting how much depth he has on the roster. You can't have it both ways, Bill. Next up, Dan Woods. Injuries ruined the season. Offensive line early. It's not inaccurate. Then the defense. The defense has been fine, Joe, though. And the Patriots lost 8 of 11 by 1 score. Most of it was one play. Runyag. Who was hurt when they got destroyed by Dallas in New Orleans? Excellent point. Excellent question, because those guys were on the field. To me, it does trace back to the Cole Strange injury and the Mike Onwenu surgery. That's where it started, because the offensive line was not 5 fingers in a glove, and that prevented the meager wide receiver group and the tight ends from flourishing.
Yeah, here's the thing, though. The issue was the best offensive tackle they signed was Riley Reif, and Riley Reif got moved after 3 practices, and none of them were padded. They knew they had bad goods in him, and Calvin Anderson's injury was bad luck. But if Riley Reif comes back and hey, he's not Riley Reif, he's Mike McGlinchey, there's no kind of we need to mix and match and move Mike Onwenu over. It's just Mike McGlinchey's back, he plays right tackle, and all the dominoes fall into line to the left of him, and they have at least a decent offensive line. But the talent wasn't good. That's still the biggest issue.
Never mind the Jacoby Myers and perhaps even the DeAndre Hopkins conversation.
Salt on the wound, Tommy.
I know. Coming back after the break, we're not going to make it that much rosier. Stay tuned. Growth Potential, brought to you by Dr. Matthew Lepresti. Look younger, feel younger, get your hair back with Leonard Hair Transplant Associates. Here's Ian Rappaport, NFL media, speaking about what will happen at the end of the year with Bill Belichick. He says that while the expectation is that a decision on his future will play out over the next month, sources also say it could take longer than that. Either way, expect a period of evaluation when the regular season ends, with no immediate conclusion on Bill Belichick coming. Okay, it's time for my slant, ladies and gentlemen. Watch out! Here's the issue with that. As I reported last week, a decision's been made. And to come off of the decision the Patriots have made, they would need some resounding results from Bill Belichick over the final 4 weeks. They have not gotten them, beginning with the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm not sure how much more digging Bill Belichick can do to extract himself. How many allowances can he make to perhaps return if he decides that he wants to have less GM opportunity or GM responsibilities? We'll see. But the bottom line is, when the season ends, if the Patriots are going to stand on Bill Belichick and make a bidding war emerge, that's not going to help the team very much. You know, say they end up extracting a second-round pick from the Los Angeles Chargers in exchange for Bill Belichick, but it takes 3 weeks for that to happen. That's 3 weeks less that the new head coach has to prepare the team. 3 weeks less that there is a personnel department with a clearly defined vision for 2024. There's the third most cap space in the NFL in the Patriots' back pocket coming up this offseason. There are oodles of expiring contracts among valuable players that they have to decide whether or not they're going to bring them back or not. And yeah, there's a top 2 pick the Patriots are going to have to start scouting and making decisions on. Foot dragging for compensation, it's not the way to go. It is not the way to go. Andrew Callahan, jump in here. How wet am I behind the ears on this?
Yeah, look, I'm on your TV show. I backed your reporting last week on my own podcast, so I'm not going to go against you here, but not for anything that Ian has said, because I would believe him. Ian's done a lot more reporting than probably I will ever do and has talked to people in the building for over a decade. But I think of Belichick's tenure at the end like this. You go to college for 4 years, right? Okay, you need to get your GPA up a certain level in order to graduate. And here we are at the end of year 4, and you say, hey, I'll nail a couple of quizzes right at the end. But how much is that going to do to sway your GPA, which for Belichick, to review, is a below 500 record since Tom Brady left, 0 playoff wins, 1 playoff appearance, and that goes back over a 5-year stretch. Like, if we accept that these results are going to be meaningful over the end, and these quizzes can actually turn around his GPA, I would say, okay, well, the first quiz was bad because that was a 27-17 game that if the Chiefs just didn't kneel out, okay, could have been much worse. Or if Patrick Mahomes doesn't throw to Kadarius Toney, who's the most giving receiver in the league, tossing pick sixes around like anybody else, this is a much worse result for the Patriots, and I just don't see it.
Yeah, and to me, what's alarming is the possible foot dragging at the end of the year. Because if they do that, and it gets messy or it gets difficult, then you're in a situation where it's starting to make one really bad season perhaps leak into 2. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and as far as that goes, I just look at this again and go, how much more do you need to see? I mean, I think you can make a decision. Whatever the GPA is not getting changed at this late stage. Whatever the season is, whatever this roster is not going to be changed. So you might as well start looking at candidates behind the scenes and back channeling if you're the Crafts. And if you're Belichick, looking at other options through your agent to say, hey, what's going on in Washington? How much might the Chargers pay me? Those conversations should be had by other people who are not directly involved so that when this end of the season meeting happens between Kraft and Belichick, they can hit the ground running. Because like you said, they can't waste any time. This is going to be a full teardown in Foxborough.
And the notion, I think, that is starting to seep forth is that people are surprised. Robert Kraft has been saber rattling for 3 years. Meanwhile, some of the coordinators spoke today. Bill O'Brien among them. Bill talking about any chance Mac Jones reemerges.
I think everybody's got to be ready to play, especially in the situation that we're in. I really do. I think that everybody has to be ready to go. Anybody that's on the 53-man roster really has to go out on the practice field and practice well and earn a shot to play. And that's whether you're a quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, running back, or offensive lineman. So I definitely, and I know that you've heard that from Bill, but that's the truth. Like you have to be ready to go, because if you practice really well, you're going to have a real shot to play.
So as always, Tom, the conversation about Mac Jones is really about Bailey Zappi, because what Bill O'Brien is saying right there is that Bailey Zappi's not played well enough where we can't bench him. So stay ready, because Mac you could be back.
Right after we're done, coming up at 6:30, tune in for our Bella Early Edition with Trenny Casey. We'll have much more on where the Patriots stand after their loss to the Chiefs. Time now for a little Chris Berman conversation vis-a-vis the Patriots. How jarring is it to see the difficulties this team is having this year under Bill?
Well, I mean, just as a fan, let alone someone that knows all the particulars, well, not all the particulars, but that follows the Patriots like we all do, very jarring because, well, how do you allow a team 10 points or less here's the middle of the season and lose all the games? So it's not like, okay, nothing is working. It's not like the old, they have good defense. I agree. I wouldn't 8-9, 9-8. I mean, we all were in the same boat, right, Tom? So going into the season, it's jarring because he's won. What's the number? 332 games. Like he didn't forget. Right. You know, he forgot more football than all of us combined will ever know. So it's painful from anyone that watches the game who respects what he and his teams have accomplished and what he stands for, really.
He would never want your pity, Boom, right? He would never, and he would say, look, this is the life we chose, Boom.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Tom. He doesn't go into any season saying, okay, we should be 13-4 or whatever the number is. I mean, he might quietly, like, these are games we could win. I mean, in those days. So I don't think he's saying, we should be 9-8 and what's happened and this and that. I don't know how to feel for him. I guess that's 3 minutes of stumbling in the answer. I'm almost as shocked as he is.
I want to ask you this. Conceptually, are Patriots fans who look at the record and want change, or are the Crafts who look at the record and have been demanding improvement, are they ungrateful for wanting change, for moving toward replacing the greatest coach of all time while he's still got plenty of heartbeat?
I don't think they're ungrateful. That's a good question. But they want to see a winner. But does that mean, okay, let's give it 3 more years of this because Bill will never be like this again? It's more. The fan question and the Kraft question is a different one.
Yeah.
Sometimes fresh air, I'm not implying that this should happen, but sometimes it happens even against our will or our desires, and fresh air ends up being a good thing. I mean, it happened, and he went to the Chiefs. I mean, he didn't have Mahomes there when he went there. And so it's not like you drop in and you have one of your best quarterbacks of all time waiting for you.
But it does mirror Brady.
Here's what I would say. I would think Bill would want to finish here, whatever that year is. I mean, whether it's after catching Don Shula, or I would think he would want to. I would think the Crafts would want to in a perfect world. But maybe there's fresh air is good for both. But ungrateful, no way. No way. Fans, we're all impatient. We want to be in the playoffs, right? No matter if you're fans of the Carolina Panthers, come on. You know, maybe they won last week, so onward and upward. So, hell, they're only one behind the Patriots. So,
no doubt.
Which is that actually hurt to just say that. Fans, I think it's more not just this year. It's a few years of what are we really seeing? Where are we moving towards?
Yeah, it can take a minute. I mean, it's hope. We'll have much more of that later this week on the Patriots Talk podcast. Meanwhile, we're going to keep plowing forward. Patriots Broncos in Denver Christmas Eve. They'll be flying home next to Santa's sleigh. Will they be happy as they look out the window and wave to the Kringle? I don't know. See you later.